They made me crawl on my hands and knees in front of everyone. Glass cut into my palms while they laughed and filmed it. I was just trying to survive. But what they didn't know, my brother controls half the city's wealth, and he was about to make them pay. Before we dive into this story of revenge and justice, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You won't believe how this unfolds. Trust me, you'll want to see what happens when the powerful underestimate the wrong person. Now, let's begin. My name is Rebecca, and I want to tell you about the worst day of my life. The day that changed everything. The day I learned that sometimes the universe has a funny way of balancing the scales. It was a Tuesday morning when I walked into the Pearl Garden for my first shift. I remember feeling so nervous that my hands were shaking as I tied my apron. This wasn't just any restaurant. This was the kind of place where celebrities ate, where business deals worth millions happened over dessert, where a single bottle of wine could cost more than my monthly rent. And I desperately needed this job. You see, 3 months earlier, I'd lost my position at a marketing firm when they downsized. My savings were gone. Rent was overdue. I'd sent out hundreds of applications, and this waitressing job was the only callback I got. I wasn't proud, but I was grateful. Money is money, and I needed to survive. Helen, the restaurant manager, was a thin woman with sharp eyes and an even sharper tone. She showed me around quickly, explaining which tables were VIP, how to properly serve wine, and most importantly, she said something that should have been a warning. The customers here expect perfection. One mistake and you're done. Some of these people own half the city, so just smile and do whatever they ask. I nodded, memorizing everything. I could do this. I had to do this. The lunch shift started smoothly. I served a few tables without any problems. My confidence was building. Maybe this wouldn't be so hard after all. But then, around 1 in the afternoon, everything fell apart. A group of 4 women walked in, and the entire restaurant seemed to shift. The hostess practically ran to greet them. Other servers straightened up, suddenly looking nervous. Helen appeared out of nowhere, smiling so wide it looked painful, and personally escorted them to the best table by the window. The woman leading the group wore a white designer dress that probably cost more than my car. Her jewelry sparkled under the chandeliers. Her hair was perfect, her makeup flawless. She moved like she owned the world, and maybe she did. Later, I learned her name was Patricia Monroe. Her husband owned Monroe Industries, one of the biggest real estate companies in the state. She was celebrating the opening of her new luxury boutique, and she wanted everyone to know it. Helen came rushing over to me. "Rebecca, you're serving table 7. Those are very important guests. Very important. Don't mess this up." The panic in her voice made my stomach drop, but I nodded and grabbed my notepad. I approached their table with my best smile. "Good afternoon, ladies. Welcome to the Pearl Garden. Can I start you off with something to drink?" Patricia barely glanced at me. "We'll have a bottle of the 2015 Chateau Margaux and make sure the glasses are spotless. Last time I was here, there was a fingerprint on mine." "Of course, right away," I said, writing it down. One of her friends laughed. "Patricia, you're so particular." "It's not about being particular, darling. It's about standards. Some people have them and some people don't." Patricia's eyes flicked to me when she said that last part, and something cold ran down my spine. I hurried to the wine cellar, found the bottle, which cost $1,200. I nearly dropped it when I saw the price, and carefully prepared their glasses. My hands were steady. I checked each glass twice for smudges. Everything was perfect. I returned to their table, showed Patricia the label as I'd been trained, and she waved dismissively. I began pouring, moving carefully around the table. I was on the 3rd glass when it happened. As I stepped beside Patricia's chair, I felt something hit my ankle. Hard. My foot caught, and suddenly I was falling forward. The tray tilted, the bottle slipped, and wine splashed everywhere, all over the white tablecloth, all over Patricia's expensive white dress. Time seemed to freeze. The deep purple wine spread across her dress like blood. The bottle crashed to the floor, shattering into 1,000 pieces. Wine pooled around the broken glass. And Patricia's scream cut through the restaurant like a knife. "You clumsy idiot!" she shrieked, jumping up from her chair. Do you have any idea how much this dress costs? This is original vintage Chanel. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely breathe. I'm so sorry, ma'am. I don't know what happened. I'll pay for the cleaning. I'll pay for it? Pay for it? Patricia's face was twisted with rage. This dress is worth $15,000. You couldn't afford to pay for the zipper. The entire restaurant had gone silent. Everyone was staring. I felt tears burning behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Please, I'm so sorry. It was an accident. I'll do anything. An accident? One of her friends spoke up, and I noticed she was holding her phone, recording. We all saw you stumble like a drunk. How did you even get this job? I wanted to say that Patricia had kicked me. I'd felt it. But looking at their faces, at their expensive clothes and their cold eyes, I knew no one would believe me. I was nobody. She was somebody. Helen rushed over, her face pale. Mrs. Monroe, I'm so terribly sorry. This is her first day. I don't know what— Her first day? Patricia cut her off. And you put her on my table? This is unacceptable, Helen. Absolutely unacceptable. We'll comp your entire meal, of course, and the dress we'll take care of. Oh, you'll do more than that. Patricia's voice dropped, becoming dangerously quiet. She looked at me with pure hatred. This girl needs to learn a lesson. She needs to understand what happens when you disrespect your betters. My stomach twisted. Please, ma'am, I really am sorry. It was an accident. Actions have consequences, sweetheart. Patricia smiled, and it was the cruelest smile I'd ever seen. You want to keep your job? You want Helen here to keep hers? Because I promise you, one phone call and this restaurant loses its lease. My husband owns this building. Helen's face went even paler. Mrs. Monroe, please. Here's what's going to happen, Patricia said, speaking slowly, like she was enjoying every word. This clumsy little girl is going to get down on her hands and knees, and she's going to crawl across this restaurant floor. All the way from here to the kitchen door, like the dog she is. The room seemed to spin. Surely I hadn't heard that right. What? You heard me. Crawl. Or you're fired. Helen's fired, and I'll make sure every upscale establishment in this city knows your name. You'll never work anywhere decent again. I looked at Helen, desperately hoping she'd stand up for me, tell this woman she was insane. But Helen's eyes were filled with tears, and she whispered, Please, Rebecca. Just do it. I have 3 kids. I can't lose this job. My legs felt like they might give out. This couldn't be happening. This wasn't real. But Patricia was waiting, her arms crossed, that terrible smile still on her face. Her friends were all recording now, phones pointed at me like weapons. Fine, I whispered. The word felt like broken glass in my throat. I lowered myself to my knees. The moment they touched the floor, I felt something sharp dig into my skin. The wine glass. It had shattered everywhere, and now pieces were scattered across the polished wood floor. I tried to avoid them, but there were too many. All the way down, Patricia commanded. Hands and knees, like a proper dog. I put my hands down and immediately felt glass pierce my right palm. Pain shot up my arm, sharp and hot. Blood started to well up, mixing with the wine on the floor. But I didn't stop. I couldn't stop. I needed this job. I needed to survive. I began to crawl. Every movement was agony. More glass cut into my knees. My hands left bloody prints on the floor. The restaurant was so quiet I could hear my own ragged breathing. Tears were streaming down my face now, but I kept moving forward. One hand, one knee, again. Patricia and her friends were laughing, actually laughing. Oh my God, look at her. This is priceless. Are you getting this? This is going straight on social media. Maybe next time she'll think twice before ruining someone's property. The kitchen seemed a million miles away. Other diners were watching, some looking horrified, others just curious like I was entertainment, like I wasn't human. Like my pain and humiliation were just part of their expensive lunch experience. Finally, after what felt like hours but was probably only 2 minutes, I reached Patricia's feet. She'd followed me, walking alongside my crawl, making sure I completed my punishment. Now, she said sweetly. Apologize properly. I looked up at her through my tears. I'm sorry for spilling wine on you, Mrs. Monroe. Not good enough. She picked up a glass of water from a nearby table. Open your mouth. I should have refused. I should have stood up and walked out, but I was so broken, so humiliated, so terrified of losing everything that I opened my mouth, and Patricia dumped the ice-cold water over my head. Her friends exploded into laughter. Someone said, "That's what she gets." And Patricia leaned down close to my ear and whispered, "Remember this feeling, sweetheart. This is where you belong. On your knees, where trash like you should stay." Then they left, just walked out, still laughing, Patricia's wine-stained dress trailing behind her like a badge of honor, like she'd won some kind of victory. Helen helped me up but wouldn't meet my eyes. Go clean yourself up. Take the rest of the day off. I stumbled to the bathroom, my hands and knees screaming with pain. In the mirror, I looked like someone I didn't recognize. Hair soaking wet, makeup running, blood seeping through my uniform. I cleaned the glass out of my skin as best I could, wrapped my hands in paper towels, and walked out of the Pearl Garden, knowing I'd probably never come back. The bus ride home was a blur. I kept my head down, hiding my face, hoping no one would ask questions. When I finally got to my tiny apartment, I collapsed on the floor and cried until there were no tears left. That night, my phone started buzzing. Text after text from numbers I didn't recognize. I opened one and felt my stomach drop. It was the video, me crawling on the floor, blood trailing behind me while those women laughed. The caption read, "Waitress gets what she deserves for being clumsy." It had already been viewed 50,000 times. By the next morning, it was everywhere. The comments were brutal. People calling me pathetic, saying I should have stood up for myself, saying I deserved it for being careless. Some were sympathetic, but they were drowned out by the cruelty. I turned off my phone and sat in the darkness of my apartment, feeling like my life was over. I hadn't called my brother. I couldn't. Christopher and I had always been close, but 3 years ago I'd told him I wanted to make it on my own. No more family money, no more special treatment. I wanted to prove I could survive without the Sterling name. He'd respected that, even though it hurt him. But now, sitting in my destroyed apartment with bandaged hands, I wondered if my pride had cost me everything. I didn't have to call him, because at noon my phone rang. Christopher's name flashed on the screen. My hands were shaking when I answered. "Chris." "Rebecca." His voice was tight, controlled, but I could hear the fury underneath. "I just watched you crawl across a restaurant floor while some monster laughed at you. Tell me that wasn't you. Please tell me that wasn't my baby sister." And just like that, I broke down again. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't want to bother you. I wanted to handle it myself. I just needed the job, and she said she'd get everyone fired and there was glass everywhere and I couldn't—" "Stop!" His voice cracked. "Stop apologizing. Where are you? Are you hurt? I'm home. My hands and knees are cut up, but I'm okay." "You're not okay. None of this is okay." I heard him take a deep breath. "Who was she?" "The woman who did this to you? Her name is Patricia Monroe. Her husband owns Monroe Industries. Chris, please, I don't want to make this worse. If she finds out you're my brother, she might—" "She might what?" Now his voice was cold. Ice cold. "Rebecca, do you know what I do for a living? Do you remember who I am?" Of course I did. Christopher Sterling, CEO of Sterling Global Investments. At 35 years old, he controlled a financial empire worth $15 billion. Banks, real estate, construction companies, tech startups. His influence reached into every corner of the city's economy. He was one of the most powerful men in the state, and I'd been so focused on proving myself that I'd forgotten what that meant. "Chris, I don't want revenge. I just want to forget this happened." "Well, that's too bad," he said quietly. "Because I'm not going to forget. Nobody touches my sister. Nobody. I'll handle this quietly, but I will handle it. Trust me on that." Before I could argue, he hung up. And somewhere deep inside, beneath the humiliation and pain, I felt a tiny spark of hope. Or maybe it was fear. Fear for what Christopher was about to do. I didn't hear from him for the rest of that day, or the next day. But on the third morning, I woke up to my phone exploding with notifications again. This time, though, they were different. The Pearl Garden had been shut down by health inspectors. Multiple violations, including evidence of pest infestation and improper food storage. The restaurant was closed indefinitely, and Helen had been fired for negligence. I sat up in bed, my heart racing. Christopher. It had to be. Then came the news about Monroe Industries. Their stock had dropped 40% overnight after Sterling Global Investment, my brother's company, had refused to renew an $800 million loan. Without that money, Monroe Industries couldn't complete their current projects. Investors were panicking. The financial news channels were calling it a stunning collapse. My phone rang. Christopher. "Good morning," he said, and I could hear the satisfaction in his voice. "Sleep well?" "Chris, what did you do?" "Me? I just made some standard business decisions. Monroe Industries owed my company money. The loan term was up. I chose not to renew it. That's perfectly legal." "And the restaurant?" "Anonymous tip to the health department, which, for the record, found real violations. That place was a disaster waiting to happen. I just moved up the timeline. I should have been horrified, but instead I felt something else. Relief. Justice." "What else are you planning?" "Oh, we're just getting started, little sister." His voice was almost cheerful now. "See, when you have money and influence, you can do a lot of things. You can make phone calls. You can have quiet conversations with the right people. You can remind certain individuals that their success depends on maintaining good relationships." Over the next week, I watched Patricia Monroe's world crumble like a sandcastle at high tide. First, the construction permits for 3 of Monroe Industries' biggest projects were suddenly under review by city officials. $600 million worth of work just stopped. Equipment sat idle. Workers were sent home. The company was bleeding money. Then Patricia's new luxury boutique lost its lease. The building owner, who turned out to be a subsidiary of one of Christopher's companies, decided they wanted to go in a different direction. The boutique opening was canceled, but Christopher wasn't done. Not even close. The video of me crawling went viral again, but this time with a different context. News outlets received anonymous packages with the full footage, showing Patricia deliberately kicking me, showing her friends encouraging the abuse, showing the pure cruelty of what they'd done. Witness statements from other Pearl Garden employees confirmed that Patricia had orchestrated the whole thing. The headline read, "Billionaire's wife tortures waitress for entertainment." And overnight, Patricia Monroe went from social media darling to public enemy number 1. Her charity foundation lost all its sponsors. Her friends stopped returning her calls. Her social media accounts were flooded with thousands of angry messages. People showed up at her house to protest. Her husband's business partners started distancing themselves from the Monroe name. And through it all, Christopher kept pulling strings. I finally went to see him at his office downtown. The Sterling Global building was 60 stories of glass and steel dominating the skyline. His secretary recognized me immediately and rushed me up to the top floor. Christopher was standing at his floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out at the city. When I walked in, he turned and smiled. He looked tired but satisfied. "Hey, little sister." "You destroyed them," I said quietly. "Not yet. But I'm close." He walked over and gently took my hands, looking at the healing cuts on my palms. His jaw tightened. "They made you bleed, Rebecca." They filmed it and laughed. "Did you really think I'd let that go?" "I just wanted to move on." "And you will. But first they need to understand what they did, what they took from you." He led me to his desk, where a folder sat waiting. Gregory Monroe finally agreed to meet with me. He's been calling my office for days, begging for a meeting. I made him wait, let him sweat. "What are you going to do?" Christopher's smile was sharp. "I'm going to give him a choice. His wife publicly apologizes to you, and I mean a real apology, not some half-hearted statement from a PR team. Monroe Industries donates $5 million to workers' rights organizations. He sells off 60% of the company assets and steps back from public life. His wife disappears from the social scene entirely. They accept these terms, or I finish what I started, and they lose everything. I stared at him. You'd really do that? Destroy everything they've built? Without hesitation, he said simply. They're down to 400 million now, from 2 billion. I can take the rest if I want to. The question is, do they want to survive, or do they want to die on the hill of their pride? The meeting happened 2 days later. Gregory Monroe showed up at Sterling Global looking like a different man. His expensive suit couldn't hide how defeated he was. Christopher made him wait in the lobby for 3 hours before finally agreeing to see him. I wasn't there, but Christopher told me everything later, how Gregory begged, how he tried to make excuses for his wife, how he offered money, favors, anything to make it stop. And Christopher had simply said, "Your wife made my sister crawl through broken glass while she laughed and filmed it. She humiliated her, degraded her, made her feel worthless. Because she could, because she thought there would be no consequences. Now you're learning that actions have consequences, so here are your options." Gregory took the deal. He had no choice. 2 days later, Patricia Monroe posted a video. She looked small, broken, nothing like the confident woman who'd destroyed me. Her hands shook as she read from a script, and I could see she'd been crying. "My name is Patricia Monroe, and I want to apologize to Rebecca Sterling. What I did to her was cruel, inhumane, and unforgivable. I abused my position and power to hurt someone who didn't deserve it. I humiliated her for my own entertainment, and I'm deeply ashamed of my actions. I take full responsibility, and I hope that someday she can forgive me." The video went even more viral than the original. Millions of views, thousands of comments, most of them saying it was too little, too late. But I watched it alone in my apartment, and I felt something shift inside me. Not forgiveness, exactly, but closure. The woman who'd made me crawl was now humiliated herself. The balance had been restored. Christopher set me up with a position managing one of his charitable foundations. Good salary, meaningful work, helping people who'd been exploited by their employers. It felt right. It felt like taking something terrible and turning it into something good. The Monroe family disappeared from public life. Their company survived, barely, as a shadow of what it once was. Patricia and Gregory moved to a smaller house in a different city. Their friends abandoned them. Their influence evaporated like morning fog. And me? I healed, not just my hands and knees, but something deeper. I'd learned that asking for help wasn't weakness. That family meant standing up for each other no matter what. That sometimes the universe does balance the scales, especially when you have a brother who controls half the city's wealth and isn't afraid to use it. 6 months later, I went back to where the Pearl Garden used to be. It was empty now, windows dark, a for lease sign hanging in the window. I stood there for a long time, remembering that day. The crawl, the glass, the blood, the laughter. But I also remembered what came after. The justice, the vindication, the proof that I wasn't worthless, wasn't nothing, wasn't alone. They tried to break me. They tried to make me small, to teach me my place, to show me that people like them could do whatever they wanted to people like me. Instead, they learned the most important lesson of all. Never underestimate the quiet ones. Never assume you know someone's whole story. And never, ever mess with someone whose brother has the power to take everything you have and burn it to the ground. My name is Rebecca Sterling. And this is the story of how I crawled through hell and came out the other side stronger than ever. This story shows that karma is real, and justice might take time, but it always finds its way. If this story moved you, smash that like button and subscribe for more incredible true stories. Drop a comment telling me, do you think Christopher went too far, or was this exactly what they deserved? Share this video with someone who needs to hear that standing up for yourself matters. New stories every week. Don't miss them. Until next time, remember, Never underestimate the quiet ones. They might just have the power to change everything.